We got a big battle in front of us, baby. And it's just started. So let's get funky like a monkey. For 16 years, the American dream has done it with you. Don't fail me now. Lord, don't fail me now.
Right. The WrestleBros are back. Vic Blaze, Captain Lou, talking a little NXT Takeover in your house.
En tu casa.
This Sunday, right?
Yes, sir. June 13th, 8 p.m.
June 13th.
Live on Peacock.
On Peacock.
And WWE Network. Airways outside of the greater United States of America.
Hey, Peacock, can you get your shit together? You know Peacock is not on the Fire Stick. You have to kind of go to, you have to, download it through the web on the Fire Stick. Like, they have a little download thing, and you got to type in a URL, and then you download it. It doesn't come up with the icon, and then it makes me update it. This is the third time I'm updating it since I've had it. And I didn't even bother. I wanted to watch something. I was trying to watch some old Brian Pillman stuff. And yeah, it was asking me to re-download it or whatever. I'm like, or update it, but I can't because it's technically not in the Fire Stick. So I have to, remove it, and then I have to download it all over again and go through the process. I have to Google the URL or whatever it is, and it's just a disaster. I don't get it. Fire Stick has to be one of the most popular things out there.
Well, I get it. I think that what ends up happening is with Peacock is that obviously for the $1 billion that NBC has paid to have WWE Network transferred over to Peacock in the United States, I get it. It was very last second and everything was rushed, but at the same time, it's been a very frustrating user experience. I will say that I use Peacock on my Roku TV, and it has gotten better. It's not great. It's certainly not the way the WWE Network was when I would put it on the TV, because the WWE Network was actually very easy to use and very user friendly. Peacock is getting better. They're certainly not anywhere near where I would like it to be, but it's improved slightly, and so I got to give them credit. Now, I don't use the Fire Stick for that purpose, but hopefully the technology picks up, because it certainly is a popular platform, and again, for the subscribers who want to use the Fire Stick, it's definitely something that Peacock and NBC, they're gonna have to figure that one out.
Yeah, and I didn't purchase an Xbox or a PS5 because in my house it's not all about the game.
Oh, yeah, come on. First off, Vic, if you're gonna make the Triple H reference, you got to commit to it. If you're not gonna commit, you can't do it.
I thought I nailed it. Okay.
No,
I can't do it. I'm sure.
Watch the replay back. You're gonna think different.
All about the game. Okay. Anyway, and I'm sure I can't get it on my TV because my TV is. I'm gonna assume I bought it when I moved in, and I've been here for 7 years. So my TV is 7 years old, and I love it. I still love my TV.
Which for a smart TV is about 100.
Yeah, but it does everything I need it to do. Yeah, it does everything I need it to do. It's not 4K and it's not 1080. Is it 1080? It might be 720.
So 720. Yeah, if it's 7 years ago, I don't think that 1080 was around at that time.
I think it was, because I remember when I was shopping, there was some cool ass TVs that I couldn't afford, and I'm assuming they probably had 1080 standard, and I'm over here like, oh well, I can't get that. And I bet you now those same TVs are $200.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm not trying to give any free promotion. I'll give this to you offline. But the TVs that I purchased are 4K TVs. They're very nice and very affordable.
Yeah. No, I know they're
ridiculously cheap. Ridiculously cheap.
Television technology keeps getting better. and every time they improve, they update the one from
The
the year before.
overall prices go down.
Yeah, so it's I know I can get a really good TV, but I love my TV, and I don't want to buy one until I get at least a 2-bedroom or one. Even if I have a studio, so even if it's a 1-bedroom, I'll have that one in the bedroom, and I'll just buy a new TV for the living room. But for right now, I'm good. I don't need a new TV. I like my TV. It's actually it's been very nice to me.
There it is. Good man. Good man.
All right, let's get into this card here. And let's start with the main event. And this is probably the 5 best guys, arguably, that they got. So you got Karrion Kross versus Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, and Pete Dunne. So normally these cards are stacked, but they put all their best guys that carry these cards on one match. So that's already a little bit of an issue there, but I don't mind it. I know Karrion Kross is a guy that you got to find them, like, you got to find matchups for him, and you don't necessarily want him to just run through everyone that quick. Just in case they're able to hold on to him for a year or whatever, they'll, because he's going to win that first matchup. He's not going to lose, so you can't really, and a lot of their better workers are heels, as far as I can tell. So he can't face, he could face them, but you're going to have him face Adam Cole. Then the next pay-per-view, you have him face Gargano. Then the next pay-per-view, Pete Dunne. Then it's like, it's like the same thing over and over and over again, and they're one and done. I'm okay with this 5-way because I think they're trying to get creative with his matchups. They don't want to waste them, and it also is going to make I think this match is going to be very exciting. These are guys who all have great matches, probably with the exception of Kross. But in this situation, I think he will have a great performance because they're going to make him look really, really good. But yeah, look, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, Gargano, and Pete Dunne. These guys, you can argue, are like, if you add maybe a Ciampa and maybe a Finn Balor, maybe a Sami Zayn, these are like the best matches in NXT history. Like, all these guys have all of them. So I think it'll be fun. I think Kross is going to win. I think they're going to make Kross look like a monster. But eventually they'll jump his ass, get him out of the match. Then you have these guys, mixing it up, and we'll see some fun stuff. It'll be probably the best match of the night, I'd assume. I don't see these other matches. Who knows, right? Who knows?
There's another match that I'm actually kind of interested in. Not saying more than this one, but I think there's another match that I believe will probably be.
Which one?
The six-man match.
Yeah, I think the 6-man match will be very exciting.
And the reason why, we'll get to that when we get to that. But with this particular match, I generally am not a proponent of multi-man matches, and especially when we're talking about for any world championship. I'm generally not an advocate for that, because of the fact that most multi-man matches are generally structured the same way. Is you're gonna have all the guys start out in the ring, then eventually guys are gonna be selling on the floor for extended periods of time for things that normally they would not in a one-on-one match. I think in this particular match, Karrion Kross really stands out like a sore thumb, basically because he's 6'3" and 260 pounds. Wrestling against guys as talented as they are, they look like children standing next to him. It just is what it is. I think the world of Adam Cole. I think he's just amazing. Kyle O'Reilly, I've said nothing but good things about him, and I've always been very adamant that I think that NXT is trying very hard to push him as a single-star babyface. It's just a matter that after the series of matches with Adam Cole, that did not happen, and they're still trying to do that with him. Johnny Gargano, again, good wrestler, excellent wrestler, but he's somebody that I could be very hot and cold about, depending on the situation and the match that he's having. And Pete Dunne, I think Pete Dunne is a badass. It's just a matter that I think Pete Dunne is better served in a one-on-one match. And I do agree with you that with a guy like Kross, you're trying to WWE has to get creative trying to find matchups for Kross. And I understand your point with this, that you don't want Kross just killing everybody. But with the exception of Adam Cole, because Adam Cole has so much equity with the NXT audience, he could be gone for, however many weeks he was gone, come back, cut one promo, and he's right back on. When you take a look at Pete Dunne has been working really great one-on-one matches for the last several months. And when Balor was the champion, you felt more stock in seeing Balor versus Pete Dunne for the NXT title, although we did see it, but the way that the match ended, you'd be okay seeing a rematch. The thing is that once Kross becomes champion, not enough follow-up with Pete Dunne in order to move him in that direction. Kyle O'Reilly, I've already said it. He's a guy that more work needs to be done to make him a credible single-star babyface. I think the only time that he ever really looked like a superstar at the end of the match is the very first match he had against Finn Balor. Then after that, everything else that he's done, tremendous efforts, but everything feels flat at the end. It feels like, okay, it's just another really great match, but he doesn't look like a superstar at the end of it. And, again, Gargano, he could be very hot and cold. I'm not a tremendous fan of the way, because I think that they've been presented as goofballs most of the time. And although Gargano has tried very hard to be a heel and develop a heelish personality, and he's helped, and I guess for lack of a better term, he's helped with the development of Indy Hartwell and Austin Theory, but I don't see him as a credible challenger to Karrion Kross. I think that I can do without him in this particular match. So the issue becomes is that Karrion Kross he stands head and shoulders physically above everybody else. And it almost looks like when you're telling this match, you're going to have to get really creative in terms of finding ways to make Karrion Kross vulnerable. Again, one of the things that NXT has done, whether for good or for bad, I personally think it's actually been to Karrion Kross's detriment, is that they have not clearly defined whether he's a babyface or a heel. They haven't clearly defined that yet. They want to make him some kind of grayish area tweener. I'm like, no. I think that as a dominant heel champion, that makes great sense because of the fact that he can use his size and his strength as a means to be able to bully, obviously smaller opponents, and then make the baby faces look heroic when they make their comeback. Unfortunately, he's got 4 opponents in this match. 3 of them are heels. The only babyface is O'Reilly, and O'Reilly is not sympathetic enough as a babyface to be in this match. Part of me would have replaced Gargano and take him out of the match and put Balor in. It's just a matter that since Balor already lost to Kross for the second time, you're not going to give him a third opportunity. Not this soon. So, because if Balor would have been in the match, you would have had essentially 2 baby faces, 2 heels, and Kross. And then there is some suspension of disbelief because we're going to eliminate Gargano automatically. He's not winning this match. But if you can always make a case for Cole. I don't think you can make a strong enough case for O'Reilly. And Pete Dunne, he's going to have a great performance, but he's not winning. But if you had Balor in that match, he's more of a glue guy for the other 3, and to be able to hopefully have a better story to tell with Kross. Karrion Kross is ultimately going to win this match. I would prefer that this match is an elimination match and not necessarily, first pin or submission. But WWE has always had this tendency that they always do everything. First pin or submission is the one that goes over in the match. So, again, I certainly got Karrion Kross winning. My hope is that Karrion Kross comes out of this looking like a badass, because with all due respect, I don't think they should sacrifice Karrion Kross as the champion to quote unquote not devastate the other talents, visually when, Karrion Kross wins. He needs a very dominant win, and it has to come across like he's the dominant champion and no one can beat him, so that they can present some new challenger for him later on down the road, and then begin to build credible challengers underneath. because if they don't do that, then this match is going to be completely ineffective.
Yeah, I was just looking through the roster to see if if there was anybody on the main roster that could probably come down and make things interesting. But because of all these releases, it feels like there's nobody really.
Well, I mean, even prior to, I mean, you could probably be able to make a case for Aleister Black, when he was still, when he was still there. But
I don't know when the last set of, I guess in the last 2 months, 3 months, we've had 2 different set of releases. What were the releases before that?
This is where, we saw Mickie James, the Samoa Joe, and the Iconics.
That's the one from 3 months ago, give or take?
Give or take, yeah.
And then the one before that was when? Or who was that? Remember that batch? There was another one?
Man,
that's the one. That's the Eric Young one.
Yeah, that's the one with but that dates back to April 2020.
Yeah. If you go back to April 2020, there was a ton. We were having conversations about this. There was a bunch of guys that were not. It's not that they were. Like right now, everyone is not everyone, but a lot of people in the main roster are ice cold, and I have no interest in seeing them. Back in April 2020, I feel like there were a lot of guys that weren't necessarily ice cold. They were like almost like Cesaro. They were like guys who weren't being utilized, and we were just waiting for them to get a spot. But now that since they've released, I don't know how many people in the last year, now it's like nobody. You can't even play around with these rosters and make them interesting. So many people are cold. It's like you got to pull from NXT. You can do that. You can pull from NXT and make the main roster better. But I don't know if you can pull from the main roster and make NXT better.
That's a conversation. I honestly think they can. It's just a matter that the guys and girls who they would need to pull from the main roster to make NXT interesting are. How can I say this? They're nowhere near the main event on any of the main roster shows. However, they're the glue that keeps the show together in terms of if you have a 3-hour show, it can't be Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre for all 3 hours. Like the Ricochets, the Humberto Carrillos, the Nikki Crosses of the world, people like that, they're nowhere near the main event, right? But these are people that they take up time on the show. If you give them something interesting to do, they can have entertaining matches. I think they would be better served probably on NXT because I think that they'd be featured a lot better, but it's a much smaller audience. So again, it's like, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul type of thing where it could get complicated because at the end of the day, NXT has a lot of people on their roster. Whether they're talented enough at this point to be on television is something totally different. Because the people that you see on NXT television are, the cream of the crop of the talent that they have on their roster. And, there's behind that batch, there's dozens of people who are, at different levels of training, ready to come up. Whether or not by necessity, these people will come out on television sooner than they would have because they have fewer people available. That's something else. But in all honesty, NXT's kind of where they are right now because a lot of the talent have got brought up to the main roster. And unfortunately, the overwhelming majority have not been booked very well.
Yeah, we'll have to try to do a draft to see if we can make NXT a little bit better without hurting the main roster, like for fun.
Sure, I'd be more than happy to do that. I already got several names in my head that I just mentioned a few of them, but if we dig deeper, I'm sure that we could come up with some. We could come up with something very creative.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Winner take all 6-man tag team match. NXT North American Championship and NXT Tag Team Championship. So this is interesting.
Yep.
Legado de Fantasma versus Bronson Reed and MSK. Now, you did say you think this might steal the show, and you're probably right. Athletically, this should be really cool. This should be a fun match. there is some drama here. You've had Bronson Reed getting into some, situations with Legado de Fantasma. So you do have that little story there. MSK, super exciting young team. My thing, why I think the main event will probably be better, is just because those guys are so much more over.
Of course.
But in an NXT setting, anyone can steal the show. So you might be right. I'm hoping this main event delivers, though. The main event should be the best match on the show based on the talent.
It absolutely should. But when I take a look, the reason why I like this match, the 6-man match, better is because and I'm going to say this in all frankness, it's a much simpler match to book. Because when you have a 6-man tag match, you already have the construct built. The fact that you have the NXT tag titles and the North American title on the line in a 6-man tag match and winners take all, I think that that's a fairly cool concept, and we haven't seen that in a long time in the WWE TV.
Mm-hmm.
So to bring it back in, I think the last time I can remember it done was back in 1995 at a WWE In Your House show when it was Yokozuna, the late Yokozuna, and the late Davey Boy Smith wrestling against Diesel and Shawn Michaels. And that's when the late Owen Hart interfered. He took the pinfall and everything. And obviously that was a gimmick that was unnecessary, but they did it as a means to sell the pay-per-view show. In this case, I think these are the two secondary titles. These stories have been intersecting from the very beginning. Again, when MSK won the tag team titles, and again, I'm not a huge fan of MSK's style. I'm just, and I've always been very adamant, I'm not a huge fan of the, independent, high-flying acrobatics style, because they do a lot of that, and it's not necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not complemented with enough wrestling to make it effective. It's just they do it, for the sake of doing it because they could physically do it. And both guys are athletically gifted enough to do it. I like Legado del Fantasma because they utilize all that high-flying stuff, but it's complemented with a very great mat-based ground game. There's a lot of psychology, and all the stuff that they do, there's purpose behind it. There is no wasted movement. Bronson Reed, in the match, obviously, he's the biggest dude in the match. 6 feet tall, 330 pounds. He's bigger than all the other guys. So it's a matter of what stories can be told in this match to kind of make this really work. I think I would like to see in this match, I'd actually like to see Bronson Reed be the babyface in peril, because I want to see how Legado del Fantasma can beat him up and try to get the big man down. Because if they do it to one of the MSK guys, I get it. They're smaller. They can be the babyface in peril, and get beat up and not die, make the tag to the big man, and he cleans up. But I think the reason why I want to see Bronson Reed be the babyface in peril is because I want to be able to see where he and oh my God, I was gonna say El Hijo del Fantasma, but Santos Escobar. I'm sorry, it's just the names. I keep knowing them by their older names.
Yeah.
By Santos Escobar, I want to see how that interaction works, because I've been saying for a long time that Santos Escobar needs to get away from the cruiserweight division, and with all due respect, working with Mendoza, Wild, and MSK, it's still technically a cruiserweight match. That's the reason why I want to see how the Legado del Fantasma guys can take down Bronson Reed and then force the MSK guys to then be the heroes of the match. But I think it's going to be a more exciting match because of the fact that I think that you have contrasting styles. Number one, because you got Legado del Fantasma, they have a good blend of the Mexican lucha style and the American catch style. MSK is like, Cirque du Soleil. It's like acrobatics galore. And then you have Bronson Reed, who, he's just Hulk smash. He's just killing people. So I think that all those styles complementing each other, I think is going to be a really cool matchup. And I'm looking forward to that one, because I think that those guys need that platform. They need that match. And this is particularly for Wild and Mendoza, because they're gonna have to continually have these great performances, because ultimately, if you're going to separate them from Santos Escobar to have them be a tag team, like a fully functioning tag team that can be credible challengers for the tag team titles, it'd be a cool mix for them to be able to give the MSK guys real difficulty. The baby faces will go over because it's certainly not their time to lose the belts, but I have a feeling that the heels are going to get a lot of shine in this match, and ultimately it's designed that way so that you can continually have heat, because this is a story that's going to continue on for the next little while between these 6 people.
Yeah, I think the baby faces will win for sure. All right, you're gonna have to fill me in on this because I don't know what I've missed, but I know Cameron Grimes had beat $1 million man, but I must have missed where LA Knight came into the picture.
Okay.
This last week?
No. This was so. LA Knight and Cameron Grimes are going to wrestle in a ladder match with the $1 million belt on the line. So the way that this storyline came through, obviously, is that Cameron Grimes, had the whole rich guy gimmick. I guess he made money. They did the whole the GameStop deal of the GameStop gimmick, and they did all that, and he got rich off of that. And then what he started doing was that he started doing all the old stuff that Ted DiBiase was doing, when he did his vignettes back in 1987, where he was like, making people dribble basketballs and kiss his feet and all this other jazz. So eventually, Ted DiBiase makes a cameo, and he's basically now torturing Cameron Grimes. And he was just torturing him, basically outbidding him for houses and, taking his women and all this other jazz, right? Ted DiBiase was doing all this stuff. Well, they had a face-off, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 shows ago, where Cameron Grimes came to Ted DiBiase and said, well, hey, you know what? I just looked up to you. This is the reason why I'm doing all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. Well, Ted DiBiase's looking at him and says, all right, kid, like you, I'm just trying to teach you. LA Knight comes out and interrupts their face-to-face, DiBiase and Cameron Grimes. And, LA Knight cuts, the LA Knight promo, which is always fantastic. And Cameron Grimes gets in his face, LA Knight lays him out. But what ends up happening is that Ted DiBiase walks out with LA Knight. So it was a setup. DiBiase had LA Knight come out to put Cameron Grimes down.
Which flips Grimes babyface.
Kind of, sort of, because, again, playing the gimmick that Cameron Grimes is playing, it's like basically the $1 Million Man, but as a comedy character. I don't think that the gimmick works for a likable babyface, but of course, with the NXT audience, they're fairly easy to flip one way or the other.
I think it works if the story that you're telling, if you get sympathy because he goes, oh, well, I looked up to you, man, to Ted DiBiase, and then Ted DiBiase flips on him, and I think you can get sympathy regardless of Cameron Grimes' actions. I think he comes off as the sympathetic one in the story.
You know what? I hope so. I don't see it that way, but I hope he does, because LA Knight is such a fantastic heel that I think that if Cameron Grimes is going to get over as a babyface, with all due respect to Ted DiBiase, because he's the $1 Million Man, he's fantastic. But in the year 2021, I don't think that Ted DiBiase is going to be a heat seeker, in terms of, getting heat. People, he's acting as a pseudo heel, and the fans are just like cheering for him, and Ted DiBiase this, Ted DiBiase that, because he's a legend, and the fans are just gonna treat him as a baby face as such. In tonight's promo, LA Knight and Cameron Grimes were in the ring. They knew they were going to be wrestling in a ladder match, but they had no idea why. And then Ted DiBiase basically said, okay, boys, here's the prize. And then out came the $1 Million belt. So I think ultimately they're reprising the $1 Million champion deal. I have a feeling in this case, LA Knight's going over. I don't necessarily know how the relationship with the $1 Million Man with Ted DiBiase works in this environment, only because LA Knight, he's so great in every aspect of the game it almost feels like the last time Ted DiBiase was a manager on WWE TV back in '96, when he was Steve Austin's manager as the ringmaster. And it got to the point where it's like Steve didn't need a mouthpiece. Steve just needed to be let loose. LA Knight is in a much better spot currently than Steve Austin was back in '96, prior to, you know, King of the Ring and the whole Stone Cold Steve Austin advent of that persona, when he was the ringmaster and all this other jazz. So I don't necessarily know past this show how the tie-in works with Ted DiBiase, presuming that LA Knight goes over. I don't see how that works, because I don't think LA Knight, with all due respect to Ted DiBiase, I don't think that LA Knight needs him as his corner man for any reason.
I think that what they might be doing is a short-term play that can be executed to perfection. I see the vision. I don't know if they're gonna go with my vision, but I think I see it. What I would do is everything you said, almost exactly the same. Maybe I would have tried to make it more obvious that Grimes is the babyface in the story, but he had his moment where he told DiBiase, "I looked up to you," whatever. DiBiase turned on him. Now the fans don't necessarily want to boo DiBiase, but maybe, like you said, Eli Drake can do enough to get them to cheer Grimes. And that's all we need. Once we cheer Grimes, and once it's official, Grimes is the babyface, because he's likable. Even when he's a full-blown heel, he's always been entertaining enough that you can see it.
Because he's always been comedic, and the thing about it is that comedy characters don't work as heels. I've always said funny's not money, but if you're the only person on the show who's being goofy, then people will like you.
Yeah, so he's well, you got to be good at it too. So
absolutely, yeah, I got you.
He's likable, and I think he's tried his best with everything he's been given, whether it was good or bad. Correct. I think people see that. So I think if you make him babyface, and it becomes obvious at the next match, at the ladder match, and if Grimes gets the people behind him and he gets incredibly close, and even if DiBiase has to do something underhanded to help Drake get the win at the end, Drake can use DiBiase, right? Short-term play. DiBiase is not there to cut promos for Drake, obviously. But that doesn't mean that Drake can't use it. We're going to introduce the belt, which I think is a cool idea, because people love that belt. And, you know, you're doing a storyline based around the belt. And it's for the storyline. And to me, it makes sense. And if Grimes in the end will be a beloved babyface, then maybe it'll be worth it. Eli Drake in the beginning, if he wins right now, let Grimes get close, let him get screwed, even though there's no rules. But if DiBiase gets involved, that's enough to piss the people off and get behind Grimes. Drake wins for now. Drake eventually can turn on DiBiase whenever. It could be when he loses the title. And you know, Grimes is going to be the one to take the title off Eli Drake if they go with this scenario, which I think will be cool, because that moment when he wins that title will feel like a big moment because they've presented this story, right? So within that story, there actually is a prize at the end for Grimes, and that's that title. And then right there, Drake can flip on DiBiase, and people want to be on DiBiase's side anyway because he's a legend, and Drake doesn't need him. But for this story, once the story's over, you know, this is all your fault, and turn on DiBiase, and there you go. DiBiase did his job. Hopefully Drake did enough to get a lot of heat on him. Hopefully Grimes, that story gets him to the next level, and we're off to the races. I think this can work. I think if this is where they're going, I kind of like it.
I mean, listen, I can see where this thing can be very successful if it's executed properly, but at the same time I can also see this can go off the rails too. And my fear is this: my fear is not that either one of these guys are going to be lost to the shuffle if this doesn't fall over, because it's not. You know, LA Knight, Eli Drake he looks great. His work is great. His promos are incredible. So he's got nothing to worry about. And Cameron Grimes, again, inside the NXT environment, he's a very good wrestler. You know, Trevor Lee, Cameron Grimes, whatever name you want to go by, he's a fantastic talent. He's very, very good in the ring. Now, you know, a lot of times, again, I've always been very adamant that, you know, funny ain't money, meaning you can only do that but for so long. And if you're going to become a top flight main event star in whatever promotion you're in, that funny stuff has to go away to a certain degree. Does it mean that you have to be stoic and whatever? No. But there has to be a clear delineation to where you're being clearly very serious about whatever it is that you're doing. So I think that this match, again, it can pay tremendous dividends for all parties involved, but at the same time, I can see how this can go off the rails. And, you know, my fear is that they've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and, you know, bringing in Ted DiBiase as well, and he's lending his presence and his credibility. You know, and again, you know, in 2021, I mean, Ted DiBiase hasn't wrestled in 25 years, but his career is something that for longtime wrestling fans, you know, Ted DiBiase, you know, has a tremendous amount of respect. He still has great presence. I mean, even when he speaks, his voice is very distinct. You know, when he speaks, you know it's him. Nobody sounds like him. That laugh, his promo, all those things, though, all those things are still there. You know, it's just a matter that if it was somebody else, like if these were talents, let's just say that, you know, LA Knight's not in this match, and you put somebody else who might benefit from having Ted DiBiase as their mouthpiece, I can clearly understand it a lot more. But with a guy like LA Knight, Eli Drake, he's so good that it almost feels like a little bit of a retread. I understand where they're coming from. It's like reintroducing the belt, short-term play. You're right about that. It's all a matter of, you know, that maybe a guy in that spot doesn't necessarily need this particular shine because he's so good that you can do it in a different way and give this opportunity to somebody else who might be a little more deficient with the mic. And a guy like Ted DiBiase can actually magnify his strengths, you know, with his promo and with his, you know, lend his credibility on the microphone with his presence.
Yeah, I get that. And if they want to talk, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know how long they have Ted DiBiase for. I assume I'm gonna guess that he is not there permanently. Now maybe he'll have a lot of fun, and
I'm sure
will want to stay there permanently, and then you can maybe find him an official guy. But I think if he's here for a storyline purpose, he's not here as a manager. He's here for a storyline. I'm okay with it, and I'm especially okay with it because if you look on the main roster, WWE has a tendency to use legends, in my opinion, very poorly. They either use legends to embarrass their up-and-coming stars, or they embarrass the legend. There's no middle ground. There's no just, you know, finding something cool for them to do that helps elevate the talent without embarrassing them or, you know, almost like mocking them or their legacy. This is, to me, nicely done. Great idea. In theory, we got to see the execution, but I like it so far. I like the idea. I think it doesn't embarrass him. I think he can come out looking really good, and he can help maybe two talents, you know, go up a notch. And Eli Drake, as great as he is, I think they already kind of messed it up. Like the beginning of his run there, I didn't love it. So now if he can get a lot of heat, if fans can get behind Grimes at the same time, it's going to take both sides, right? As Grimes gets more loved, hopefully Eli gets more hated at the same time. It can happen. They have the right people, in my opinion. These are the right people, the right types of talent to pull off the story. I think they've made a good decision. I want to see how it plays out. I'm actually curious, so that's good.
Yeah. I mean, that's point well taken.
All right, let's go to Xia Li and Mercedes Martinez. I guess two girls in interesting positions, right? These are potential main event talent right here. No, they're not main event talent.
Not the way they've been.
Not the way they've been booked, but
not this has nothing to do with my disagreement with you about them being main event talent. Has nothing to do with either one's individual talent. It just has to do with the way that they've been positioned on the program. And it's not new. They've been positioned poorly since day one.
Well, Mercedes, so since this change with Xia Li, I thought she's looked pretty good.
Well,
She's badass. When's the last time she lost? I feel like she hasn't lost in a long time.
Well, yeah, no, she hasn't. But then the question becomes: is when's the last time we saw her? You know, when she was introduced in the heel persona, and this probably dates back, I don't know, 3-4 months, right? Let's just, and I might be conservative about this. When Xia Li was introduced in that role, she wrestled against Kacy Catanzaro and Kayden Carter. Two women on the NXT roster who I like them as a tag team. They're a good underneath babyface tag team. They put them in the ring with Xia Li, and they're talking about their real life friendship, which again I thought it was stupid because I'm like, you understand that all three of these women are underneath talents. Nobody's going to know their backstory, and in all honesty, no one cares. It should not be about their friends or they were former friends. The storyline should basically be is that Xia Li turned a new leaf, and now she's picked her first victims, and voila, here we are. So in storyline, she enters Kacy Catanzaro, puts her out. Then she beats up Kayden Carter. She's gone. And now we haven't seen Xia Li in what feels like months. And now she reemerges wanting to go after Mercedes Martinez after Mercedes came back after that horrific run with Retribution. Brought her back to NXT. They have her pick a fight with oh my god, was it Rhea Ripley, that she picked the fight with? And then Rhea Ripley took her out before she went to Retribution. But then she comes up, she picks a fight with Raquel Gonzalez. I think that was it. She picks a fight with Raquel. Raquel beats her. So then in that one match, I'm like, okay, so Raquel Gonzalez is technically a heel. Mercedes Martinez is technically a heel. They wrestle against each other, and both of them come out as baby faces. That's ass backwards. Mercedes Martinez then is wrestling against, enhancement talent. And now you have Xia Li, who we haven't seen in months, wanting to pick a fight with Mercedes Martinez was not over. So again, both of these women are incredibly talented, but it's just they've been positioned poorly on the card. So this is a match that, yes, it's going to be helpful to both of them. I think that Xia Li should go over, but she would have to cheat. Or if Mercedes is and again, if Mercedes goes over, then Xia Li has to get the heat at the end. One way or the other, Xia Li has to come out of there on her feet and Mercedes Martinez flat on her back. Because you got to be able to give continuation to the story. Because if Mercedes Martinez wins and has the smiley babyface moment, then we might as well just send Xia Li packing. This is a story. This is a match again. It'll be a good matchup. I like both women. It's just a matter that they've been positioned poorly, and I just wish that they were in a better position than where they currently are.
Yeah. I mean, I like both these girls. I think they've done a decent job with Xia Li in the last year. She hasn't lost a singles match in a year.
She hasn't wrestled many, so probably a handful. But
no, you're right.
I get where you're coming from.
She hasn't wrestled many, but the good thing about her is that her stuff has been memorable for me. Because of the new character and the promos, and when she wins, it's dominant. It's like almost a squash, you could say. So, based on what I've been seeing, I feel like she is booked well, even if she's not there often. At least when she's there, She's winning. She's being dominant. And she's getting those nice Jeremy Borash promos, which are always ridiculously good.
I don't get the Borash promo reference, but okay.
Well, those promos that they shoot for Xia Li and Boa.
Okay.
Yeah, those
You're saying that
produced by
Borash is
Jeremy
producing
Borash,
them. Okay, all right, I got you.
Yeah, which to me those are really fun.
Yeah, they are.
They got going on.
They
Those
are.
pretty
I
cool.
mean, I wish that Boa was, anybody gave two craps about Boa, because it would be more effective to have her paired with him as as the sidekick. But unfortunately,
Yeah, I don't think he's the guy for that spot. I think he's just gonna be someone to get picked on and abused. That's fine. Hopefully they do add people to this little stable. Maybe a guy who is legit, and maybe someone who
add another woman
or a woman. Yeah, whatever. That's fine too.
I mean, in all honesty, I'm hoping that sooner or later, because I honestly think that the opponent that Xia Li should go after, believe it or not, is Io Shirai. Because again, Io Shirai is over to the NXT audience. So to pick a fight, and I guess it's baby steps, because obviously you're not going to go to Io Shirai right now, but I think that that's going to be, if NXT books this right with Xia Li and keeps her strong, that can be a future big match for her.
Well, I don't know when the next takeover is. I don't think they've announced anything. But
it'll probably be September. I don't think it'll be SummerSlam weekend. It'll probably be sometime in September, probably.
Yeah, so let's assume within 3 months, they better get on it, because I don't see Io staying here much longer. I think she'll be going up very soon.
And here's the thing. I agree with you. I think that Io Shirai will be heading up to the main roster sooner rather than later. And it's mostly, I think, out of necessity, because although Io Shirai has basically done, quote unquote, all the work that she's going to do in NXT, I guess I'm a little frustrated by the fact that they've done such a poor job with Raquel Gonzalez, because again, Raquel Gonzalez is a very attractive woman, beautiful smile, the whole thing. She comes across like a baby face instead of a dominant heel. There's been no rematch with Io Shirai, which is an easy main event match for Raquel Gonzalez to have her beat Io again, to establish that she's the champion and then move her on to other people. But again, Raquel has basically been positioned as a babyface, and obviously it's being done so when Dakota Kai turns on her. That's going to be the whole Shawn Michaels Diesel match. And, because they've had them together as a pair for so long now, for, the better part of the last year and a half, 2 years, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez have been a pair. So that's the ultimate match they're heading towards. But, back with Io Shirai and Mercedes Martinez, again, important match for both women. And I'm hoping for both of their sakes that this match goes really well. Because ultimately, the person who goes over in this particular situation, it kind of sucks to say it this way, but I don't think that it necessarily matters that much who goes over. As long as the match goes really well for both women, then they can both get over equally, no matter who wins or who loses. Because of the fact that neither one is particularly over at this particular moment, it's not going to kill anybody as long as the match goes really well. And that's why I'm hoping that that's what they give us, a really good match.
I literally think the opposite. I think I would have not paired them together. I think I would have done more work. I think Xia Li is fine. Like I said, I think I get where you're coming from. She should be on TV more, but I don't know.
So should Mercedes Martinez. Mercedes should. What they should do with women like this is they should be on the show alternate weeks. 1 week Xia Li gets a match, the next week Mercedes Martinez gets a match, and they alternate that way for 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, because you gotta put them on the show, because then when you make a match like this, it feels like it's coming out of left field, and then it just feels like a match to have for the sake of a match without a real story. That's the point.
My whole thing is that I know Mercedes has not been, her stuff has not been great, like the stories and the booking.
That's not her fault.
It's not her fault, but I still think she's close. Where if you make a couple of good decisions, she's a believable main eventer. And Xia Li, I think Mercedes started that way. As soon as she showed up on NXT, I'm like, oh, main eventer. And Xia Li was started more like she needed this transformation.
Oh, absolutely.
And character development to become what hopefully she will become. But I don't know. I feel like whoever loses this match is in trouble, and they're going to have to do a lot of work. I think Xia Li should win, though, just because they've done a better job with her stories than Mercedes. In my
Xia Li has more upside at this moment.
Yeah,
Mercedes Martinez, when she came in, I agreed with you. When she came in, she looked like a bona fide badass.
To me, she was the freaking Undertaker. She was like, "Oh, well, look at the female Undertaker here. What the hell?"
Well, here's and again, I remember that for folks who might be listening to this for the first time and they might be saying, you know, what's all this discussion? Go back. I know that Vic and I had a conversation about an NXT episode that aired sometime in maybe June or July of 2020. This is when Mercedes Martinez came on as a full-time member of the NXT roster. She wrestled against Santana Garrett, and I remember telling you that I was like, this match was all wrongly booked because Mercedes Martinez needed to work against somebody much smaller than her because, again, Mercedes looks like a badass, but Mercedes is about 5'6", 5'7". So if you put her in the ring against the Casey Catanzaro, who's 5 feet tall, then you got that whole Undertaker vibe that you're talking about, and she just kill her. But when you put her in there against Santana Garrett, who's somebody who is comparable in size, and Mercedes looked at that on that particular day like she was having some issues just handling Santana Garrett's body, it didn't go off well. And I think the issue is and then when Mercedes worked against Rhea Ripley, and you saw the disparity in size, and Rhea Ripley beat her and just beat her flat, basically pissed in her mouth, on the way out. Mercedes, unfortunate. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just like, unfortunately for Mercedes, she was put in a very difficult spot because now these are not things that the audience can unsee. In order for the audience to unsee that, whenever you reintroduce the wrestler back on the show, you have to make them dominant over a certain period of time. And Mercedes Martinez was presented as a heel. Then she has a match against the heel NXT champion, women's champion. They both turn babyface, which I don't know how the hell they were able to pull that off. To turn two heels babyfaces in the same match. And now you have Mercedes Martinez working as a babyface when she has no track record of being a babyface. And she really shouldn't be a babyface because of the way that she works. If you're going to have Mercedes as a babyface, you should probably put her in there against an established heel that can get her over as a babyface and get sympathy on her. So again, Mercedes and Xia are probably right at the same position, give or take. I think there's more upside with Xia Li because of the fact that, again, like you mentioned, her transformation has been much more drastic, much better. And I think, unfortunately, for Mercedes Martinez, it upsets me because she's so talented. It's just a matter that she just has not gotten good breaks. And I don't think that this is going to do her any solids. Because if she wins, Xia Li's going to have to get the heat at the end and lay her out. And I don't know if Xia Li's first loss should come with something to a baby face that's not really over. And I don't know if Xia Li can take a loss or, Mercedes Martinez could take a loss to Xia Li without, I don't want to say it's not going to kill her. I don't think it's going to completely do much damage, but
yeah,
I'm not convinced that either one of these girls can walk out of here looking shiny no matter who goes over.
Look, I think you make the decision. You go Xia Li has more upside, She's younger. We've done a better job with the booking for her and the storytelling for her and the character development.
In recent months, yes.
Let's go with her for now. Mercedes will try to rehab. It's going to be hard to recover, in my opinion, but anything is possible. It's not that crazy.
She's talented enough to do it.
You can always figure it out. Something can always click. The right promo, the right change of hair color, the right gear. Literally, you're always like one thing away from getting completely over in wrestling, which is the good thing about wrestling. But I think you go with Xia Li, and I think you keep her dominant, you keep her strong. You keep doing those promos, and I don't know if she beats Raquel, but maybe whoever beats Raquel maybe loses to Xia Li eventually. I think Xia Li has the potential to be champ, and that's. I think she's good enough. I think her presentation is strong enough. Now, I'd like to see her in a long match, and I think that's what we're gonna get. So let's see how good she is in a big match environment. If she knocks it out the park, I believe that she can be a champion. So we'll see, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, right now, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I mean, we might as well go to the women's title match next with Raquel Gonzalez, and I say this with all due respect because again, I like Raquel Gonzalez, and I was pulling for her big time when she beat Io Shirai a month or two back. She became the NXT Women's Champion. But unfortunately, the one thing that has really gotten me about Raquel is that when I watch her, again, she's big, she's strong, she's attractive. She's somebody who you can cheer for and you want to cheer for. The problem is that her inexperience shows. And you could still tell that even though she's a champion and she's worked her ass off to get to this spot, you could still tell that she's green. And there's still areas where, not saying that it's not clicking. It's just that there are areas where, I just wish that things would be a little different because someone like Raquel Gonzalez as a dominant heel champion would make a ton of money and would be really good in that spot. And they're turning her babyface way too soon. Way too soon.
Yeah. And oh, damn, it's crazy because I forgot that they added Taya Valkyrie, right? What's her new name?
Frankie Monet.
Frankie Monet. But she's a heel. Xia Li is a heel. So this
is the reason why.
Because I
understand why they're going to turn Raquel Gonzalez babyface. I understand why they do it. Because Dakota Kai's an excellent heel. You're not going to flip her babyface, and you're not going to have her be Raquel's sidekick forever. That's just not going to work. Because then basically you're giving away an excellent talent and potentially a good match there between the two of them. Frankie Monet, Taya Valkyrie is a fantastic talent, and the match that she had, her debut match, was perfect introductory match. Xia Li, I'm going to withhold my judgment. She's certainly not nowhere near the title picture as of today, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now, story could be different, and I could be, and I'm open to be convinced that Xia Li should be in an NXT Women's title bout. But as of today, what June 8th? Hell no. But that could change. So I'm very open to that possibility, but I think that ultimately, again, I'm not in love with the idea of turning Raquel babyface because I think it's too soon, but it's been very subtle, and they're doing it. But Raquel, as far as I'm concerned, Raquel Gonzalez turned babyface the moment she won the NXT title, because I saw that big smile on her face. All that she looked like a happy little girl who just won the pony at the fair. She didn't look mean. She didn't look tough. She didn't look imposing. She just looked like the girl that prom queen or whatever. And at that moment, I was happy that she won the title. But at that point, I was like, the whole image, the whole illusion of Raquel Gonzalez went up in smoke. And then the following week, when she was on NXT TV, hugging and kissing with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, the last major rival that she had on NXT, and they're kissing and hugging in the ring. I was like, it's like, can you guys not maintain the illusion? Can you not maintain the illusion for even a second? And the answer is clearly no. They turned her WWE's turned her baby face from the moment she won the title. And she was the dominant heel. As soon as she beat Io Shirai, babyface.
Yeah. I think they might have to reshuffle the deck here.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't see a lot of opponents. I mean, if she's babyface, then yes, there are a lot of opponents, but I don't want her babyface really either. And then I don't want her to be a babyface against a heel Dakota Kai. I absolutely do not want to see that.
Well, but here's the thing, right?
I'd rather see it in reverse, actually.
Well, part of me understands where you're coming from, right? When I look at Dakota Kai versus Raquel Gonzalez, and for the folks, Raquel's going to be wrestling against Ember Moon. It's just that we're kind of jumping along here, but with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, this is the Shawn Michaels versus Diesel story. That's really what this is. It's just a matter that it's not like when
and
Shawn Michaels
on who? Diesel turned on Shawn, no?
Well, technically yes, because Shawn Michaels basically super kicked Diesel several times on television, knocked him out, and then Diesel had enough, and then he just went after Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels ran away like a scalded dog.
Diesel was the baby face, right?
And Diesel was flipped babyface. Yeah. But the reason why that worked is because the fans were already organically cheering for Diesel, because when you're 7 feet tall, 320 pounds, and you're beating the piss out of everybody, eventually the fans start to like it. And they start cheering for him. So it made perfect sense. But in Raquel Gonzalez's case, although Raquel, I think, could organically be turned babyface by the audience, I don't necessarily think that, I hate saying this, but I don't think that she has enough experience to be able to carry that role as a babyface. And I think that it works for her to be the heel, because then she can do all the power stuff. She could cheat, she could, or not cheat when you're as big as she is, but she can stretch the rules as far as she can go without getting disqualified, doing all that other stuff, and just impose her physical will. But what ends up happening in too many of these matches is that all the smaller wrestlers, and all the girls are smaller than she is. They work competitively with her. They thwart her. They put her in all these moves. They put her in submissions, put her in victory rolls. They spin out. They do all these. And I'm like, shit, no. You book the baby faces to work against Raquel, to where they're trying to get away from Raquel, and they're trying their best to get offense on her based on their defense, create offense. But Raquel is so big and so strong that she just beats them down. And they get the offense on Dakota Kai because Dakota Kai is smaller. And they believably, the other girls can then beat her up. And the only time that they ever get to Raquel is when it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1, and they're able to get her down that way. None of these girls should be able to do jack squat against her 1-on-1. And unfortunately, since they don't work the matches that way, it basically makes Raquel look smaller than she really is because of the way that she works.
Yeah. So the reason I say I'd rather have it the other way, where Dakota is the babyface, is not because I think she is better at being a babyface than a heel, but I think the perception is already that Raquel surpassed her when she was supposed to be the star.
Correct.
And she kind of got pushed to the side. So already that's a babyface story already. She got pushed to the side. All the shine went to Raquel.
Jealousy is a heelish thing.
Yes,
Jealousy's not a babyface thing.
You can go heel with it. However, perception on television is that Raquel's better than Dakota already. So I don't believe that Dakota Kai as the heel has a shot in hell. Like, there's no reason for me to see that match. Now, Dakota having her friend betray her and having a grudge, right? And being the baby face who we kind of underdog
wants vengeance. I get it.
who wants vengeance. And the thing with Dakota is that she is really good. She's actually talented enough to be a top contender. Is that enough, like, happy accidents, like things happen and moments happen organically in wrestling sometimes, and sometimes you go with it. I don't think they knew that Raquel was going to get this good, this fast, and get in the best shape of her life, and everything just click out of nowhere. I'm pretty sure the story was for Dakota to get over, but it happened. So now that happened,
Raquel's put in the work. She deserves it.
She deserves it. Yeah, absolutely. But now that it happened, if you go, oh, by the way, Dakota's the heel, Raquel's just going to squash her, and Dakota is done. She is done.
And you know what? That's not, you're right in that position. But again, Raquel Gonzalez has already been turned babyface. It's already happened. So
maybe keep
the way
them together and not break them up.
The way that it would work is, in a perfect world, is that they're a pair. They're the dominant heel pair. And then basically Dakota loses matches on behalf of, Raquel whenever they're working tags or whatever. And Dakota keeps losing all the time. And Raquel loses patience. Raquel then takes Dakota and beats the pants off her, leaves her laying. Dakota then goes back to Raquel saying, Raquel, what's going on? And then it looks like, all right, Raquel's gonna apologize, whatever, let's be friends. And then Raquel beats her ass again. What you're doing is you're putting heat on the heel, because then Raquel becomes the flat heel, because now she's not only beat her friend up after a match when she's at her worst, but then she psychologically suckered her and left her laying. And although Dakota Kai might look like the dummy babyface, but at some point Dakota Kai gets it. Okay, she's no longer my friend, and then she could basically still be the heel Dakota Kai. It's just that now, instead of doing the heelish things to the babyface, she does it to the heels, and then you're able to turn her babyface while still keeping the edge to her persona. And then you can have that match to where, the match that you would prefer to see. That's the route to get there. But unfortunately, Raquel's already been turned babyface. But anyway, we've already talked about.
Has she been turned babyface, or is that your?
My assessment is she's already been turned babyface. And although she's going to work with Ember Moon this weekend. And Ember Moon is clearly positioned as a babyface.
Yes. Will they shake hands at the end of this match?
Hell no.
Okay, so I don't think she's officially a babyface.
It's not. The reason why it's not going to be that way is because what they're doing is that a lot of what NXT is doing with Raquel Gonzalez's babyface turn is not something they're doing on television. They're doing all this stuff on, these little exclusive WWE, social media things. But what ends up happening is that those things then trickle to NXT TV the week after. So what may end up happening is it's the same bit of business like they did with Mercedes Martinez, where Raquel goes into the trainer's room after the match, and then she looks over at Mercedes and says, respect, and they look at each other, they give that nod of respect, and they walk away. Well, I can understand if Raquel did that and Mercedes Martinez was a babyface, positioned as a babyface, then I understand that. But the fact that they were both heels, it's stupid. Yeah. It makes no sense. But if she were to do that with Ember Moon, then I can understand that. Because Ember Moon is a babyface. Ember Moon took her to her limit. Raquel Gonzalez still went over. She beat her fair and square, although it was a physical match. And she could look at Ember Moon and give her that nod of respect. The babyface still gets their shine because, the champion, gave him a tip of the cap. But then you're already telling the story that Raquel's turning babyface. Whether it looks like it's a slow moving vehicle, but it's going to get there eventually.
Yeah. All right, getting to this match. Now, the good thing about this matchup is that Raquel gets to work with Ember, and Ember, historically, is a pretty good takeover performer. So you have an opponent that can give you a really good match. And Raquel has had good matches. So there's
with
nothing.
Ember Moon. She's had good matches with Ember Moon in the past, so it's not.
Yeah. So I think they're positioned to have a pretty good match, even a great match. And who knows, like if Ember Moon is on, because when she is on, she is really, really good. I think I don't know if we've seen her at her best. Her first NXT Takeover run, I don't know if she was better, but maybe because she was more over, the matches were better. Maybe I don't. I assume she's better now because she's more experienced. But
it's a combination of two things, a couple of things. One is, obviously, youth, and less banged up body. After Ember Moon tore her Achilles and she was out for an extended period of time, we're talking like year and a half, 2 years where Ember Moon was out. When Ember Moon came back, she was not in wrestling shape. She clearly didn't look the way she looked when she was in her first NXT run. She looked more like a star on her first NXT run. When she came to the main roster, it didn't work and it made her look like crap. So they needed to rehab her anyway. The injury was more like a blessing in disguise, although she was out for much longer than she would anticipate, obviously. When she came back to NXT, she didn't look her best. She was still a little rusty. And what ended up happening was that WWE positioned her in a way where she wins one match, and then in her second match back from injury, she loses to Dakota Kai, and Dakota Kai didn't cheat. I was like, that's ass backwards. You've basically doused her with cold water as soon as she walked through the door. If you're going to do that, Ember Moon needs to be winning every week on TV until she runs into the NXT Women's Champion. That's the only person who should be beating her because she's the champion. And then after that, if you want to slow her down at that point, you can, but you don't do it on her second match back on television. That was just what ended up happening was that actually it really put the brakes on Ember Moon's second run, and it really hurt her, Ember Moon, until she got in with the tag team with Shotzi Blackheart. And I think that has been good for both of them, because although they're both very good, individual talents, but they actually work very well as a team. And I think that's been a tremendous help for both of them, Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. I think that Ember Moon now has actually been rehabbed enough to where this match, makes some semblance of sense because of the fact that Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon have been working a lot of tag matches in the past with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. So it makes sense. There, you can track this back to Ember Moon at the beginning of her run. You can track it back to, the War Games match, because all four of those women were in the War Games match on opposite sides. They wrestled, they fought over the women's tag team titles. There's a lot of stuff between them that this match makes sense. Do I think that it's going to be a great match? Probably not. Is it going to be a good match? Yes, I expect it to be a good match, because I think that the contrasting styles works. I think that Ember Moon, although she is smaller than Raquel Gonzalez, she's certainly shorter, but but Ember Moon has some size to her, even though she's only but 5'2". But she has size. She doesn't look like a child next to Raquel. Obviously Raquel's 6 feet tall. So there's the height disparity, but it's not like Ember Moon weighs 110 pounds. Ember Moon has some size to her, and she has athletic ability. She has the really cool, eclipse finish from the top rope, that, the off the top rope neck breaker. That's a really cool move. I think that they have the elements here to do a really good match. My hope is that they keep Raquel Gonzalez looking really strong as big man versus little man match, not have it be so competitive and so even keel. This match has to be like a 70-30 match for Raquel Gonzalez, because if it's close to a 50-50 affair, then basically you're telling me that Raquel Gonzalez at 6 feet tall and 200 pounds is, works like a girl who's 5'2" and 120. It's just, you're not supposed to do that. You got to be able to see the visual disparities and be able to work the match based on those things.
What's Raquel's finisher?
Raquel's finisher is the one arm choke slam power bomb thing.
Okay. So hear me out here. This is what I think the finish is gonna be. I think Ember's gonna go for the Eclipse, right? And when she's gonna get caught, and Raquel's gonna just grab her and finish her right there.
And that would be
awesome.
That would be an awesome finish. Book it.
Let's
book it. That's an awesome. You know what, Vic? That's an awesome finish.
Yeah. Because it's like that damn Eclipse finisher is so cool. You kind of at least want to tease it. She's not gonna hit it because if she hits it, she has to win, right? That's a very protected finish.
And the thing about it is that I don't necessarily know whether or not I want Raquel Gonzalez to be put in such a vulnerable position to where Ember Moon could hit it. She would probably have to hit it as like a desperation type thing, and Raquel's strong enough to catch her and
with
the power bomb.
Like you said, Raquel could take 70. Ember can sell her ass off. Do the whole hope spot. She can fire up, and then towards the end have a typical babyface comeback, and here it goes, and we're gonna get the win. And right there, she gets caught out of thin air, and boom! I think that'll be cool.
Yes, I do. Book it. I love it. I love it. That's a great finish. Book it.
All right. So before we get out of here, so all these people that got released, right? I feel like a lot of that could be like just to cut cost, and maybe renegotiate potentially with some of these people. If you could grab any of these people and put them in NXT, right? And they agree to a deal. Hey, we're gonna send you to NXT now. You can sign with them. You get a fresh start. Do you think anybody would take that deal, or would you like to see anyone take a deal like that? Out of the people that were released, even the last set of releases too.
In all honesty, no. Because when you take a look at the talents that were let go, I think that ultimately the fans get hot and they get upset about this, and I understand why. Because you look at the WWE and say the WWE is making more money now than they've ever had. They've probably made about $5 billion, in the last fiscal year, with all their television deals and all this other jazz that they're doing. They've just made, money hand over fist. When you say about letting talents go, the fans' reaction is, well, if the WWE's made so much money, why are they saying that we're letting go of talents for cost-cutting measures? Because when you put those two positions together naturally, it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. If you as a company have made $5 billion in the last fiscal year, to basically say, okay, let's just say that all these salaries come out to a combined $10 million for all of these wrestlers that they've released over the last, year or so. It almost seems like a drop in the bucket by comparison to the money that they're getting. But the reality is that all of these, the majority of the talents, because this isn't for all of them, but the vast majority were talents that have been working in the WWE for years and not used properly. If you're one of those talents, would I work a deal out with the WWE? Eventually, the answer is yes. They all do, and they all will. Because in all honesty, we'll have to see what happens with AEW in the next few years. Because in 2 years of existence, you can have your opinions about AEW. I certainly have mine, but I gotta be fair. In 2 years, I can't look at them and say whether your business is going to succeed or fail long term. It's not fair to do that. But for a lot of the wrestlers, they generally always go back to the WWE because the WWE is by far the largest platform. They ultimately will be able to offer you the most money long term, meaning for some of these wrestlers, when you work in the indies and you have that creative freedom, after a while, what ends up happening is, unless you get to a certain level to where you become the top draw, the top attraction for all independent wrestling, your money begins to dwindle at a certain point. The WWE notoriety, the shine, whatever you want to call it, eventually dies down, and then your rate for what you're getting paid for doing indie shots levels off. You're not making quote unquote big money per appearance. Now it starts to level off, and it gets less and less and less, to the point to where a WWE deal sounds really sweet to have a consistent paycheck coming in and only having one place to work. The frustration for the talents is that these talents come in and they might have some buzz. You have people that go back to the indies, like a Drew McIntyre, who was let go by the WWE years ago, went to the indies, spent whatever long it's been, 6-7 years, whatever it was in the indies, making a name for himself, changing his look, getting all his stuff together, comes back to the WWE, and worked his way through the NXT system, which I don't think that he ever really needed to be in the NXT system, but they brought him there. Then they brought him to the main roster. He had a few starts and stops, but eventually the WWE gave him a legitimate chance. He took the ball, he ran with it, became the WWE champion, and is where he is today. Bobby Lashley, similar situation. MVP. There's plenty of guys that can do it. It's just a matter of, do I think that these talents today who've been let go over the last year or so, should they renegotiate deals with the WWE? The answer is no. No. If you're smart with your money, which I hope that they were, then they can easily just say, screw it. I mean, think about it, right? When and I did some research here, regarding Braun Strowman. His downside guarantee was $1.2 million with the WWE. Mm-hmm. Let me ask, where the hell else is he going to be able to make that money? Nowhere.
Work. He's gonna have
if Tony Khan and AEW were to offer him half of that, he'd still be making more. He'd be making more than 90+% of the wrestlers all over the world.
Yep.
And basically AEW doesn't tour, so if he only has to do television, he's essentially working maybe 5 or 6 days a month, and you're making, mid 6 figures, upper 6 figures. That's a sweet deal. And you don't have to, and you won't have to do nearly as much shit because of your size. You can work a particular style where you don't have to do all the crazy stuff that you were doing, working in the WWE, because maybe you're not going to be asked to do as much. And certainly if Strowman was to work the indies, all he'd have to do is show up. The indie fans, long term, if he just shows up and just phones it in, the fans will eventually start booing him and don't want to see him anymore. But do you think that the independent fans who may not go to WWE shows, if Braun Strowman was to show up, they wouldn't want to see him?
I think they're curious at first, but I think he does have to bring something to the table. He can't be big. I'm not saying he has to. I think he needs to be entertaining or interesting.
Absolutely, and he's capable of doing that.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that for a guy like Strowman, if he was to go back to the WWE, and believe me when I say this, Braun Strowman will come back to the WWE. He will, because a guy like him he's a product of the WWE. He is a direct product of that company. And if he wants to stay a television wrestling star in the United States of America, I believe that the WWE is his only path. I don't think he fits in AEW. So if AEW signs him, well, shit. He ain't gonna be stupid. He's gonna sign the contract. If Tony Khan offers him, like I said, if he was to offer him half of what the WWE was offering him.
Well, we don't know what kind of guy he is either, because you do have the Cody Rhodes of the world who go, you know what, I'm gonna dive in head first. I'm gonna kill it on the independents, and I'm gonna bet on myself.
But what I'm saying is that a guy, when Cody did it, Cody did it because he was trying to prove a point. He was trying to prove a point to fans because of who Cody's stock, because he is the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and the brother of Dustin Rhodes, and there's a huge family legacy there. And when he was in the WWE towards the end of his run, it was you would not have been able to decipher Cody Rhodes from any other Dick, Tom, or Harry in the WWE locker room, the way he was presented. So I understood Cody was trying to make a point. Do I think that Strowman would be that motivated? I don't know him personally. He might very well be motivated to say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to show up and I'm going to go to these independent shows and I'm going to show why the WWE made a mistake. And guess what? WWE will gladly re-sign him, because guess what? The WWE, all of these layoffs that they're doing is based, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm almost certain that WWE is pending to make a sale. And the thing is that when you're making a sale or potential sale, what you want to do as a business is you want to show that you are as lean as possible, that you are making ridiculous profits and running as lean as you possibly can, because you have to become attractive to potential suitors and buyers. Do I believe that once a sale is done, if a sale is done for the WWE, it'll be worth billions of dollars? Whoever buys it, which I'm presuming it's going to be one of these major conglomerates, whether it's NBC or Fox or Disney or whomever, some major company is going to buy the WWE. If we get to that point, and I believe they will. What's going to end up happening is that the WWE at some point, then the pockets will reopen, and then they will have money. But are they going to be offering guys 7-figure downside guarantees? No.
Well, yeah, let me say something about that.
They're not.
I think the big issue with WWE is that they had these downside guarantees, and then when AEW came around, they started offering more money.
Absolutely.
Which is fine, which I think the wrestlers deserved more money. However, because of the pandemic,
and it was smart. I wouldn't let any of those wrestlers walk when I didn't know what AEW was going to be. I would have done the exact same thing.
Yes, but here's the thing. So when the pandemic came around, they were stuck with these contracts, and the people went from working 5 days, or the wrestlers went from working 5 days a week to 1 day a week. And all of a sudden, the contract says, I have a downside of 500,000, 600,000, 700,000. But if you do that per date, all of a sudden they went from making 5,000 per date to 20,000 per date, or 25,000 per date, depending on the wrestler, of course. And all of a sudden the pay scale is all over the place. Like it's like it blew it up. So I do think some of it, I think you're right. I think they do want to look as lean as possible in case they get a great offer. I think Vince is probably willing to sell as long as his kids are taken care of. Meaning
they're already taken care of now.
I mean in his eyes, no. I'm pretty sure he's like, when Stephanie's a billionaire, then we're okay.
All right.
But
granted.
What I mean by that, I don't mean taking care of financially. I mean taking care of, meaning they have jobs in the WWE.
Well, of course, listen. At the end of the day, if the WWE sells, right, this is what will end up happening. Vince McMahon will be gone. Like, I think at that point, Vince McMahon will go away. At that point, Shane McMahon will go away. Stephanie McMahon will basically be the chairman of the company, and Triple H will be the head of creative. Because if you're a buyer, like let's just say that I'm NBC and I buy the WWE and I've paid, I don't know, let's just say I'm just going to give a ridiculous figure. Let's say I paid $10 billion for the WWE. It's a ridiculous figure, but I'm just making it up for exaggeration purposes.
Yeah, I paid somewhere there. It'd probably be 6 or 7.
Sure. But still, it's a ridiculous amount of money. Mm-hmm. Do you think that I'm going to buy that company and buy all of its assets and everything that's ever been produced, everything they own, every videotape, every wrestler contract, every TV deal, everything that WWE has? and I'm going to be stupid enough to say that I don't want the people who basically created this empire to still be running the company. No, that'd be stupid.
I think you put. I don't think you sign them permanently, but I do think that you give them
Nick
time.
Khan is
3-year
essentially
contract, 5-year contract to see what you can do and to see if we still need you. Yeah, I absolutely think, like you said, Stephanie and Triple H will be there.
Nick Khan is essentially running the company.
But also, like I said before, I think these contracts got out of hand. Not that the wrestlers don't deserve the money, but still, on a per date basis, maybe maybe the contracts need to be set up per date just in case of a pandemic now, which they were not expecting, of course. So,
here's the deal, right? When you take a look at other guys, and I'm going to use Roman Reigns as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what Roman Reigns makes, but I sure as hell know it's more than $1.2 million.
Yeah, it might be 3, probably.
So, but here's the deal, right? You take a look at a guy like Roman Reigns. Let's just say he's making 3 times the amount that Strowman was making. So that'll put him at $3.6 million per year. It sounds like a ridiculous amount of money for Roman Reigns, but the fact that Roman Reigns is so much more than just what he does in the ring, he is a much more valued asset to the company than, with all due respect, Braun Strowman was, having a downside guarantee of $1.2 million and basically only wrestling. Because Braun Strowman was not, and he was not an ambassador for the company. You don't see him doing, major interviews or being a representative for the company in terms of the big faces, like the big campaigns and all the things that WWE does. So those are the kinds of things that you begin to look at, even as in organizations like outside of professional wrestling. Sometimes you have companies that have to downsize, or they need to, lean themselves out. And what they do is that, unfortunately, the people that are making top coin are usually the people whose head are on the chopping block first, because then you have to see what added value those people are bringing to justify their salaries. And in some cases, they can say, we really love this person, they're great or whatever. But, when they're getting paid $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, and, the marketplace doesn't bear this anymore, we can be able to, to save $100,000 a year by, dismissing them, and splitting their duties among 2 or 3 people making lesser money. Those are just things that companies in real life do all the time. It's not fair. It sucks. I mean, a lot of times for me, I don't necessarily feel bad. I feel bad for the wrestlers because I don't want anybody to lose their job. But a lot of times I feel really horrible for the office staff, because there were a lot more office staff. Whole departments in the WWE were essentially eliminated. And I think it's because WWE had a lot of redundancies in terms of how their productions were done, and different people doing individualized tasks, whereas they felt with the restructuring that they can kind of have fewer people kind of streamline all the work. But for those folks, it can be a little more difficult, because in the pandemic era, there might not be as many companies hiring for those types of jobs, versus in professional wrestling, you've kind of seen it even throughout the whole pandemic. You've seen that companies are still hiring wrestlers, and they're still, giving out contracts. Obviously, it's not going to be anywhere near the amount of money WWE was giving out. And unless AEW is willing to offer you a contract, they're going to be the next biggest paycheck you're going to get. Everywhere else, you're going to be making significantly less money. But if the wrestlers are smart with their money and save their money, they would be willing to take less so that they can have more artistic freedom, do what they want to do on their schedules, kind of call their shots a little bit more, and still get exposure to, the wrestling audience that watches WWE, and then hopefully bring those eyeballs to said product, whether it's MLW, NWA, Impact, Ring of Honor, whomever, New Japan, whoever it might be. They can be able to bring new eyeballs to those particular shows. So there's benefits, there's benefits and drawbacks, and unfortunately for fans who are upset about WWE doing this, listen, guys, with all due respect, this ain't the first time it's happened. It's not going to be the last time. All wrestling companies have to do this because you have to filter through the talent. There are very few times where you can have talents that could be on for years and years and years at a time and not get stale. And those talents are usually very, very special talents. And those are generally the cornerstone talents for organizations. These are the people who, we talk about long after they're retired, long after they're dead and gone. We still remember them, for those specific reasons. It's not the average Joe or the average Jane, that has that longevity in any walk of life, especially in professional wrestling.
All right. Say bye to the people.
Well, on that note, boys and girls, we want to remind you, Instagram and the Twitter machine, the WrestleBros, THEWRES, TLEBROS. For Vic, I'm Lou. Deuces.